Hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Deepa Robbins from DeeZinesByD, and today I have another Make the Cards Challenge post for you. So this is post number 34 and it is a color challenge again. And the colors we have are themed peachy keen. So we've got a nice peach, two different tones of peach, black and a gray. Now, for myself, I interpreted that gray, as you can see here on the challenge post, to be more of a silver. So I used the gray as silvers or tones of silvers, and then I used the two peachy tones along with the black, which is my whole background. Now, I saw this technique used on somebody else's channel. It was Lady Michelle from Facebook, and I am giving credit where credit's due because we should all do that as fellow designers. And basically, she used black watercolor paper, which I didn't even know existed, and she basically added a whole bunch of different colors to it in Oxide inks, and it made such a nice. Actually, I think she used metallic inks, but it made such a nice background that I had to do the same thing. So I'm using this Legion Stonehenge Aqua watercolor pad. It's an 140-pound cardstock, so it's pretty thick. And it's this nice watercolor black. So because it is a watercolor paper, it helps your watercolors move, or any type of ink that's added to the paper that has water added to it. So I'm cutting this down to 5 inches by 7 inches, and that's how big my panel is going to be. And I'm going to use some Tattered Rose and Dried Marigold Oxide inks. I thought that these were the closest to the two peaches for the color challenge. And then I'm also going to be using my Yasutomo Pearlescent watercolor paints. I'm going to use the silver and that peach and maybe a bit of the white to add some flex to my card. So all you want to do is have a craft mat, or the glass surface I have underneath would work well as well. I just didn't want to have to clean it up. And now I'm just smushing my inks onto my craft mat. Then I'm using my water bottle. It has only water in that spray bottle, and I'm going to just smush down my paper on top and kind of wiggle it around to pick up the color. Now I noticed that that dried marigold was very orangey and not that much. It didn't really give too much of a peach color, so I dried this off, and then I used my paper towel here to kind of pick off some of the orangey splotches, because I decided I'm just going to try and build up more of that tattered rose to get more of that peach look. So I took off most of the orange, and then I used my heat gun to dry my panel. So I find that your panel, it is going to warp. It's going to start bending in, and when you heat your panel, what you want to do is heat it on the front and back to sort of even out the warping. So I'm doing this in stages. I'm basically smooshing my paper or my cardstock into the ink, and then I'm drying it, and then I'll smush it a bit more, and then I'll dry it. And this is how you create layers on your background. So as I said, I'm drying it on the front and on the back, and this flattens out your cardstock. If this doesn't work for you, you can always let it dry and then press it between some heavy books or heavy magazines that will help flatten it out. So now I'm going to go ahead and start adding the pearlescent colors to this. So all I'm doing is adding some water to the little ink wells, or the watercolor paint wells, and then I'm just flicking it on. At first I just kind of used my finger, but then I decided I wanted more like bigger droplets, and I wanted it kind of all over. So I took my acrylic block and I started flicking the paint onto the background. And because I have like a lot of black near the top, I kind of wanted to have more of these water droplets in the back. And after I had dried my oxide ink, because it is an oxide ink, it has that reactive nature. Since I mixed it with water, it looks a bit more cloudy than it does peach. So I felt that I wanted to add more of like the peach and the silver flecks onto it to sort of match with the color theme we have going. So that's the final panel. Nice and flat after I dried it with my heat gun, and it dried by itself. I didn't press this, I just used the heat gun. And that's the final product that you get, which I think looks really cool, especially on the black background. So I'm going to move on here and work on my focal point, which is the Coneflower. This is a set by Honeybee Stamps, and I've seen some of our designers from the Make the Cards Challenge use this before. It's a really nice set, and it's pretty much out of stock everywhere. I tried to link it up, and hopefully you can just kind of hit the notification. Some of them like ask you can put your email in and it'll notify you when it's back in stock, some of the stores out there. So I'm just showing you here, like there's 4 layers. That's how it layers together. I cut out some pieces with some white cardstock and a few with some of that silver Sizzix Opulent cardstock. So there's silver and then a charcoal gray. So that's how I'm kind of keeping to our theme with the gray tone. So now what I'm going to do is kind of ink blend my petals. So first I'm going to start with the Tattered rose. So this would be the top layer of petals. So I'll call this layer 1 for the sake of this video. And I'm just going to carefully ink blend this with the Tattered rose Oxide ink. Now I don't have to do that little budding piece because the little center of the flower, because that's going to get covered up anyways. That's kind of just where I'm holding the flower down to get the ink onto the petals. Now I've moved on to some Concord and Ninth Grapefruit Ink. So this is just like a lighter peach tone, but darker than the Tattered rose. And I'm just kind of adding it all over on my petals. And I'm going to create a bit of a gradient with this layer. So once I've added the grapefruit, I'm going to go ahead and add the Concord and Ninth Sorbet, which is a bit of a darker peach. And I'm just going to add it more so along the edges, like the bottom edges of the petals. And once that's done, I'm actually going to go back to my Tattered rose and I'm going to add the same type of gradient to that one as well, but I'm going to just use the grapefruit ink to add that bit of darker color to the edge of the petals. So here I just came back with some grapefruit to, yeah, here I'm doing that there. So on the other ones, I came back with the grapefruit to kind of just fill in more of the white because I noticed there was a lot showing. And now I'm going to assemble it. So first of all, I'm going to use my Barely Art glue and I'm just going to add it to that little center. Okay, to the center of the coneflower. Don't add it to all of the petals. I mean, by all means, if you don't want to add too much dimension to your card, you can go ahead and glue down the petals if you want. But I find you don't really need to. It adds a bit of, like if you wanted, you could even curl up the petals. That creates a lot of dimension. So anyways, I chose silver as one of my layers you can see here. So this is my second layer that I used the silver for. And then on my other flower, I use the silver on a different layer just to add some variation. So once I've got that together, that looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and put together the little center of the flower. So I just used some black cardstock for the bottom layer and that charcoal Sizzix Opulent cardstock for the top layer. So this is more of like a matte cardstock, like a matte shine, like it doesn't shine, it's matte color, which is what I liked because it still brings out that, or follows that whole gray color theme. So now I have these tiny little foam squares. You can't really see them. I showed you them a bit earlier. And all I'm doing, because I didn't glue down the petals, I'm lifting up each petal that kind of overlaps and I'm putting the squares in between. This creates a lot of dimension and this die set is perfect for it. It has all of those overlapping petals which allow you to add that foam square or foam tape that's going to lift up the petals and then just kind of create not only just like a two layer image, but it's got the 3 layers on top of it, which makes it really nice for 3D detail like this. So this is how they ended up looking, and I'll show you from the side view how much dimension you actually get by popping up those petals. It looks really nice. Now, if you're going to be putting your card through the mail, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but there is enough dimension on that flower by itself without putting the foam on. So I'm going to move on to my sentiment. I'm using PinkFresh Studios Anemone Magic stamp set, and I'm just going to be using the sentiment from it. And I'm stamping that again on the Sizzix matte charcoal cardstock. And I'm using some white Hero Arts fine detail embossing powder to help this sentiment kind of stand out. So while I heat it, it does kind of bend the cardstock a bit, but once it dries or once it cools down, it goes flat again. Now I have these stems from the Altenew Lily Craft-A-Flower set. The the honeybee set does not have any stems in it. So I wanted them. So I went to my stash and picked out these stems, and I just cut them out of some white cardstock, plain white cardstock. So as you can see, I actually tried to heat emboss on that watercolor background, and you probably could do it. You probably just need a stamp positioner to do it so that you can do it a couple times and get a nice crisp image. I was a bit lazy and I tried to do it with an acrylic block, and it didn't quite work out, so that's why I created the little sentiment strip. So now I'm just going to add my flowers and then the leaves that I cut out in the way that I want on my front panel here. So I basically just put the flower down with a piece of foam, with a foam square, a bigger foam square, and now I'm adding the leaves in behind that, and I'm using some glue for that, so it's just going to stick right down on that back panel. Now I'll just stick those stems in because I did want them to kind of come off the page. So like I said, you can always mix and match all your different die sets to kind of get the look that you want. Don't be afraid to do that. So again, I'm just going to arrange this one. And these leaves are using the charcoal paper. And I really do have to vouch for this Sizzix cardstock. I use it on like everything I do. And it's like a pack with 50 pieces of cardstock, 5 different types, 10 pieces of each different type. Some are glitter, some are like this matte colored, some are very shiny mirror cardstock. Like it's a nice variety of cardstocks in different tones. Like they have it in ivory, rose gold, gold, charcoal, and silver. So I would definitely recommend getting those. I'm going to move on to my embellishments. I'm using some Trinity Stamps bubble blower embellishments. Now this is really cool because these are like nice little droplets, but because it's the bubble blower kind, they shine like a rainbow of colors. So I decided to use this on my background to kind of just bring out the colors in this and kind of just add a bit more interest to the background there, since it's pretty white and black, right? And the whole point in this, keeping the background a bit more of a shaded color, is to allow the peaches in the flowers to stand out. Now I'm also using this boiled sugar drops embellishment pack here from Trinity Stamps as well. And this one, it's just clear. It doesn't shine like different rainbow colors, and they're just to simulate like little water droplets on top of the actual petals, which is a really nice look once you've got it all on there. So now to move on to the card inside, I've cut my card base out, which was a 10 by 7 inch piece of cardstock center folded. This is a heavier weight white cardstock that I'm using. And I'm going to use the same technique that I used on the flower. So I'm going to just take my Tattered Rose Oxide ink and ink blend it in the left corner. And I want to keep it darker on the edges and lighter going into the center so that that nice light pinky peachy color blends into the white. Then I'm going to use the Grapefruit Concord and 9th ink to add a bit more shadowing and a bit more darker gradient on the edge. And then, sorry about all the shaking. My camera is actually attached to my table, and when I really get to ink blending, it shakes a lot. And so finally, I'm using the Sorbet from Concord and 9th on the very edge to just create that really nice gradient that fades into white. So now I'm going to move on to my stamps. So I'm going to be using the Altenew Hello Sunshine stamp set. This is a bit of an older stamp set, but it's really nice in that it has all of these outline images of different flowers and leafy elements that I can kind of add some interest to the inside of my card with. So I'm just going to stamp these out in some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. Sorry, my video is kind of like lagging a bit here. But basically, I'm just taking all these little stamps and just stamping them out. So now I have a bit of an opposite effect on the inside of the card. So on the front, I had the black background and then the peachy colors from the flowers kind of standing out on top of it. And now on the inside of the card, I have the peachy background and then the crisp dark black ink standing out on top of that. And the nice thing I found about this set is that it has like mirror images of like the leafy elements, like the one that I have in the corner there. I'm going to be using it on the bottom in the mirror image. And I'll just finish off stamping this inside with these little stars that also come with the set in like a couple different sizes. So that just kind of helps that floral imagery blend into the rest of the white. Now finally I have my sentiment. So again, I'm going to be using this PinkFresh Anemone Magic set. I used one sentiment on the front, and then I'm going to use another longer sentiment in the inside of my card here. I'm using again and I'll just stamp this out, and I'll just do it freehand. All I really have to do is kind of line up the inside of my entire card base with the lines or the grid pattern on my mat, and then I can stamp that out nicely. So here's the final product. It really turned out nice, much nicer than I thought it would. That black background is really nice. It helps the peaches kind of stand out, and the 3D effect with all that foam is really nice. The inside continues the color theme to kind of match the front. And that's my final card. So I encourage you guys to head on over to www.makethecardschallenge.com, check out all of the designers' inspirations, and get inspired, create your own card, and link it up. I've only been a part of the design team for this third quarter, and I have to say that the different sketches and all the different challenges have really helped me kind of step out of my regular norm of creating and just create something new and different. And it always kind of ends up better than I thought it would. So go ahead and do that yourself. If you liked my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified of any future videos that I do post. I have a link here to another video you can take a look at, along with a playlist. And if you get a chance, please check out my blog. All of the supplies that I've used are listed and linked there for you. And there's also some other projects that you might want to take a look at. So I hope you all have a great day, and don't forget to join the challenge. I'll see you again next time. Bye.